He was born in Singapore in 1965 in a cramped public housing apartment in the neighborhood of Bukit Panjang. His father was a security guard, his mother was a seamstress. He was a small boy, unremarkable in every way except one. He noticed things other people missed. He noticed patterns, he noticed weaknesses, he noticed that the world of professional football was not a meritocracy of talent and hard work. It was a marketplace, and in every marketplace there were people willing to sell something they were not supposed to sell. His name was Wilson Raj Perumal. By the time he was 40 years old, he had fixed hundreds of football matches across dozens of countries, controlled national teams, and built a criminal empire that stretched from Singapore to Zimbabwe, from Finland to Australia. He was the most prolific match fixer in the history of the sport, and for most of his career, nobody knew his name. Perumal's entry into match fixing began not with football, but with a prison sentence. In his early 20s, he was convicted of burglary and sent to a detention center in Singapore. Inside, he met men who ran betting syndicates, men who understood that the global explosion of sports gambling in the 1980s and 90s had created a new kind of opportunity. The amount of money wagered on a single English Premier League match could reach tens of millions of dollars. The amount of money wagered across Asia, where gambling was deeply embedded in the culture and often operated outside legal frameworks, was incalculable. A single goal scored at the right time by the right player in the right match could shift tens of millions of dollars from one set of pockets to another. The question was how to make that goal happen. Wilson Raj Perumal figured out how. The method was simple in concept and devastating in execution. Perumal would identify a football club that was financially vulnerable. Small clubs in small leagues in small countries were the easiest targets. Players in Zimbabwe, in Malaysia, in Laos, in Kenya often went months without being paid. A few $1,000s in cash, handed over in a hotel room or a car park, could buy a goalkeeper who would let in 3 goals before halftime, a central defender who would be slightly out of position at the critical moment, a striker who would miss a penalty that he would normally score. Perumal did not need every player on the team, he needed 3 or 4. 3 or 4 players on a football pitch, working together in a conspiracy that no referee, no fan, and no television camera could detect, could produce any result the fixer wanted. The operation evolved over time. Perumal discovered that the most efficient way to fix a match was not to approach individual players. It was to approach the club itself. He would fly to a small country, meet with the club's owner or general manager, and offer to sponsor the team. He would provide new equipment, pay overdue wages, cover travel expenses for away matches. In return, the club would cooperate with his instructions. The players would be told a new manager was advising the team. The real manager might be bought off or replaced or simply ignored. Perumal's men would take over the dressing room. They would dictate the formation, the tactics, the substitutions. They would tell the goalkeeper when to concede. They would tell the striker when to miss. They would run the team like a puppet theater, and the audience, the thousands of fans in the stadium and the millions watching on television around the world, would never know. The scale of Perumal's operation was staggering. Between 2000 and 2011, he fixed matches in Singapore, Malaysia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Kenya, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Bahrain, Lebanon, Egypt, Bolivia, Finland, Australia, and at least a dozen other countries. He fixed league matches, cup finals, international friendlies, and World Cup qualifiers. He fixed matches involving the national teams of Zimbabwe, South Africa, Bahrain, and Togo. He fixed a friendly match between Nigeria and Argentina that was played in front of 60,000 people. He claimed in his memoir that he had the entire national team of Zimbabwe in his pocket for years, from the players to the coaching staff to the officials of the Football Association. He said he could call the captain of the Zimbabwe national team on his mobile phone and ask him to lose a match by a specific scoreline, and the captain would do it. The FBI, Interpol, and multiple national police forces investigated these claims and found them to be credible. The mechanics of the fix were elaborate and carefully concealed. Perumal's team would fly into a country days or weeks before a match. They would book rooms in a hotel near the team's training facility. They would approach players individually, often through intermediaries who were former players or local agents. The intermediaries would explain the proposition. The proposition was never framed as match fixing, it was framed as business. The player was not being asked to betray his country or his club. He was being offered a salary supplement, a performance bonus, a one-time payment for a small adjustment to his usual performance. The adjustment would not be obvious, it would not be dramatic. It would be the difference between a clean sheet and a single goal conceded in the 87th minute, the difference between a shot on target and a shot that drifted just wide of the post, the difference between a clearance and a deflection that happened to fall to an opposing striker. The difference to a spectator was invisible. The difference to a betting syndicate in Singapore or Malaysia that had placed millions of dollars on the exact scoreline was everything. Perumal's relationship with the players he corrupted was complex. He did not see himself as a destroyer of sport. He saw himself as a businessman operating in a market that the sport itself had created. Players, he argued, were already being exploited by clubs that did not pay them, by agents who skimmed their commissions, by federations that treated them as disposable assets. He was simply offering them a better deal. He paid them in cash, on time, in full. He treated them in his own account with a kind of paternalistic respect. Some of the players he corrupted became his friends. Some sent him Christmas cards. One named his son after him. The line between criminality and commerce, in the world Wilson Raj Perumal built, was not a line at all. It was a gradient, and he had been sliding down it for so long that he no longer remembered where it began. The end came in 2011, and it came not from the football authorities, who had been aware of match fixing for years but had lacked the resources, the will, or the legal framework to stop it, but from a police operation in Finland. A Finnish club had reported suspicious activity around one of its matches. Finnish police, working with Interpol, traced the betting patterns back to a syndicate in Singapore. The name Wilson Raj Perumal appeared in wiretaps, in bank records, in the testimony of players who had been approached. A warrant was issued. Perumal was arrested at Singapore's Changi Airport as he attempted to board a flight. He was 46 years old, and his empire, which had operated in the shadows for over a decade, was suddenly blindingly visible. Perumal's arrest triggered a global reckoning. Hungary, Italy, Turkey, South Korea, and Australia launched investigations into matches that Perumal's syndicate had targeted. FIFA, the governing body of world football, created a new integrity unit to combat match fixing. Interpol opened a dedicated task force. The scale of the problem, which Perumal's case had exposed, was far larger than anyone had imagined. Hundreds of matches had been fixed. Thousands of players, referees, and officials had been compromised. The integrity of entire leagues and tournaments had been called into question. The sport that 2 billion people watched every weekend was, in ways that were only beginning to be understood, not entirely real. Wilson Raj Perumal cooperated with investigators. He served 2 years in a Finnish prison and was then extradited to Hungary, where he served additional time. While in prison, he wrote a memoir titled Kelong Kings, using the Singaporean slang term for match fixing. The book was a confession, a justification, and a warning. He described his methods in granular detail. He named clubs, leagues, and countries. He explained how the betting markets worked, how the money moved, how the players were recruited, how the fixes were executed. He claimed that the problem of match fixing was not going away, that for every syndicate that was shut down, 3 more emerged, that the gambling industry was too large and too profitable to be policed by the fragile institutions of sports governance. He was, in many ways, right. What makes the story of Wilson Raj Perumal different from other crime stories is not the scale of the crime, it is the nature of the crime's invisibility. Match fixing does not leave a body, it does not leave a crime scene, it does not leave a victim who can testify to their loss. The victims of match fixing are the millions of people who watched the match believing it was real. They are the fans who traveled across a country to see their team play, the punters who placed a bet on what they thought was a fair contest, the children who idolized the player who was secretly on a fixer's payroll. They will never know which matches were fixed and which were not. They will never know if the goal that won the championship was authentic or engineered. The crime of match fixing is a crime against belief. It steals from people something they cannot measure and cannot recover, their trust that what they are watching is true. Perumal was released from prison in 2014. He now lives in a witness protection program, his location undisclosed. He continues to cooperate with law enforcement agencies around the world, providing information on active match-fixing syndicates. He is, in a strange and uncomfortable sense, irreplaceable. The man who corrupted the sport is now one of the few people who understands how to save it. He has said that he regrets nothing and that he regrets everything. He has said that he would do it all again and that he would do none of it. He is a man who cannot be separated from what he did, and what he did cannot be undone. Every match that Wilson Raj Perumal fixed is still fixed. Every goal that should not have counted still stands. Every championship that was decided by a result that was not real was still awarded, and somewhere in a vault, or on a hard drive, or in the memory of a man who has not spoken publicly in years, is the list of matches that were never supposed to be played the way they were played, the complete ledger of the most prolific match fixer in the history of sport. That list has never been made public. It may never be made public. Football does not want to know what Wilson Raj Perumal knows.